Welcome to the show. If you listen to the RunDot podcast or the RunDot podcast, you are in the right place today. I'm going to tell you who is on the show today, and then we'll tell you what in the world we are talking about. It's me, Andrew, the host of the RunDot podcast, and I'm here with Carrie Tollefson, host of the RunDot podcast. How are you, Carrie?
I'm great, and you can see I have my big glasses on, so it's serious today. You know, anytime I have my glasses on, it's podcast day, but I have my notes already. This is going to be a deep one, so I hope you all came ready to learn. Our guest today is Jeff Booher, the founder and CEO of Predictive Fitness, the company behind RunDot training, TriDot training, and so much more. Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Oh, glad to be here. This is going to be fun, and I'm glad to see you have your glasses on, so I know I'll bring my serious talk.
Yes, get serious.
Maybe working some big words with some little words.
I love it.
Isn't that just how language works, Jeff? Like just a combination of big words and little words? Like
I think
just
so.
Yeah. Anyway, now I want to notate, I personally asked Jeff to come on the show, and in fact, we're going to be doing a whole series with Jeff, kind of rolling out in the coming weeks, all about the first principles of training intelligence. There are a lot of folks out there trying their hand at designing training plans for runners, triathletes, and other endurance athletes. And with over 20 years as a thought leader in this industry, I asked Jeff to just come on and take us deep into what has to happen for training design to actually be good for the athlete.
Ooh, it's going to be fun. But as always, we're going to start with our warm-up question, move into our main set learning from Jeff, and then we're going to ask Jeff an audience question on the cool down. Lots of good stuff today, so let's get after it.
This is the RunDot podcast, the running show that brings you world-class coaching with every conversation. Let's get started with today's warm-up.
Whether it's a team sport, an individual event, or one of our beloved endurance sports, sports are exciting to watch.
And for today's warm-up question, what individual athlete across the sports, doesn't matter if it's running, triathlon, basketball, whatever, who do you think is the most exciting to watch right now, Jeff? So we're going to pass it over to you.
Well, it's kind of hard for me because I've been focused so much on running and endurance, triathlon. So I haven't been watching
And
much
Jeff, I do
else.
want to say, because this is so hard, and maybe I'm cheating for myself here, just knowing what I want my answer to be, but we will give you up to 3 people. It's hard to say just one across all the sports. So you can name drop 1, you can name drop 2, you can name drop 3, totally up to you. But we'll make it a little easier on the 3 of us by declaring
Rules,
that today. Up to
Andrew,
3.
Rules.
Okay.
Come on.
That narrows it. That's good. That gives. Well, I'll do 2 then.
Okay.
I'd say first is Taylor Knibb. I think she's been fun. I got to see her in person on the Gold Coast, and then the next weekend Oceanside in back-to-back wins. So it's cool, kind of on different coasts and different continents, back-to-back. But then I have to also mention Christian Blumenfeld, is incredible. Oceanside as well with Taylor, but then Texas, it's just, he's unbelievable. So it's really, really fun. Real deal.
So Sebastian Sawi is the guy I have to mention this week. He ran 1:59:30 in London, which is unreal. We just saw John Career break the Boston Marathon record. Jeff and I were there to see John do that. Sharon Lokedi, I think, is another big name. She didn't set the Boston Marathon record this year, but she won back-to-back titles. So she won last year in a course record and this year, and she's just such a competitor. And then I'm going to throw in an NBA guy. Some of you on CTally Run have heard me talk about Con Knippel. He was in the running for Rookie of the Year with his teammate at Duke. They're both now pros. Cooper Flagg ended up getting the Rookie of the Year, but Con Knippel is my best friend from high school, son. And she has 4 more boys. She has 4 more boys to come. The next one is 6'10". So get to know the name Con Knippel and all the Knippel boys. They are rock stars.
Yeah, and so that makes it extra exciting for you to watch him play because there's a personal connection there. Absolutely get that. Some great answers there from the both of you. My answers here, Jeff, like I said, just representing my endurance sports pedigree. Christian Blumenfeld's on my short list. He's so exciting to watch no matter what distances he's doing. He's in the running to win the race and do something crazy.
And wait, can I interrupt
my other 2 answers?
Has he run
Absolutely.
a straight marathon before?
Not to my knowledge.
So, I mean, okay. So, Christian, there, I gave it to you. I think you're a sub 220 guy.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Alex Yee is, I think, the big name in triathlon that just tried a standalone marathon, and that was in the news there for a little bit. I'm not sure if Christian has.
Okay, give us your second or third one.
My other ones, Caitlin Clark on the basketball court carry.
Love her.
Unreal to watch. Like I'm more interested in this phase of my life in watching women's pro basketball and watching Caitlin Clark do her thing than watching any NBA matchup. Girl dad energy. Yep. And yeah, it's I love having like women's sports on TV as Ellie walks through the room and sees women's tennis or women's NBA, women's hockey. But the other one, as a tennis guy, Carlos Alcaraz is unreal. What he can do on a tennis court with a tennis ball and a tennis racket and his legs is unfreaking real. Anytime he's playing, it is super exciting to watch. So those are our answers from Jeff, Carrie, and Andrew. We're going to throw this question out to the I Am TriDot audience and the I Am RunDot audience. So join the podcast groups in your apps, guys. In the RunDot app and the TriDot app, you can now join a podcast listener group. We're going to throw these questions out there. If you're watching us on YouTube, watching us on Spotify, you can answer in the comment box or follow us on social media where we'll post this question because we want to hear from you across all of sports. What athlete is your favorite to watch right now? And yes, you can also choose up to 3.
Let's go.
All right, are we ready for the main set? Because we are going to dig deep.
Ready.
We want to get all of Jeff's info in this little bit of time. So, Jeff, we are going to talk training intelligence today. Even right there, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be exciting. So, Jeff, you and I are at all these races right now, and we are seeing firsthand how these athletes on the start line, whether they're running marathons or they're running triathlons or different distances, this is something that we all hope that these athletes did something like big time to get there, right? We all hope they have that base and that background behind them. Whatever plan that they're on or whatever coach they connect with, how different could each of their training really have been if maybe they were with us here at RunDot or TriDot?
Yep. TriDot or RunDot, either one, but massively different. So that was kind of one of the dilemmas when I first got in the sport. They could be either massively similar in the sense that they're all following a generic template plan. But if they're customized, they're massively different. Sometimes you think that's true. But however, if you got 10 credentialed coaches and they have similar athletes, almost the same athletes, or you propose here's the same athlete, you would get back 10 meaningfully different training plans. The same athlete for the same race. All of the coaches are experienced. They're all credentialed. They're all claiming to be data-driven, but they can't all be right. So I'm like, how can that be? That's what I found when I first got into the sport. It's like, how can all these, they're data-driven, but they're all different. And this plays out across the entire industry. I mean, it's everywhere. This is not, and so basically the problem is not a debate. It's a foundation problem. So I know personally, and I've been through many certification courses, USA TF, USA Cycling, USA Triathlon, and the amount of time that they actually spend on how to design training plans and how to go about that is minuscule. Like we had, and I know Andrew's been through certification as well. I think in his 2 days, they spent an hour, maybe 45 minutes on how to put it together. And it's just theory. It's subjective. There's so much subjectivity. It's incredible. And that subjectivity is passed down generation to generation. So what you see is coaches training on how they learned, how they came up as an athlete, or what they learned or the philosophy that they subscribed to. But there's no standardized framework of how to determine if that's true or if it's right. It's just adopted and passed down. So our approach is very different than that. We have that first principles approach. And so it's not a question of how has it always been done, but instead, what is fundamentally and incontrovertibly true? It's a big word. I can't even say it.
That is a big word.
Big words and little words today.
Yeah, you can't argue with it. It's just is true. So we that's what we try to find rather than just leaning on how it's always been. Our mission and goal, and what we've been doing for 25 years, is seeking out how can we know what's true? How can we discern how each individual should train by age, by physiology, by all of these different things. And so when you have triathlon coaches or running coaches, they didn't build their training plan. When they build training plans, they're not building them from scratch. Actually, they're building them from an inherited philosophy that they adjust just enough to be their own. So they inherited some philosophy from somewhere that was derived then from somewhere else, and they're passing down theory, philosophy, or what worked for them.
A really bad game of like fitness telephone.
Yes.
Yeah, it sort of is. And it's definitely
Yeah,
like give
Jeff.
and take and like, trying to figure things out on the fly, which I think is interesting. I mean, and I've done that. That's how I was coached. And there's a lot of trial and error along the way.
Yeah, and so imagine if you can take that trial and error out of the situation and actually feel confident in your training. But that's a lot of what we're talking about today. Jeff, when I was doing my USA Triathlon coaching certification, like you alluded to, like it was wild to me that even in the 1 hour where we were talking about designing training, like we literally had like an assignment where we broke up into small groups, and each small group was given an athlete and given a scenario, and we had to like write like a training session, and a training block for that athlete. And in my group of like 6 people, our ideas of what we should do with this athlete were so different. And so you have to like make a final decision. Like each group like presented what they decided, to do. And the instructor didn't even give any sort of like, oh yeah, okay, so you tried this, maybe think about this, this, and this next time. He didn't even like poke holes in anybody's answers. It was just kind of like, okay, yeah, great job. On to the next group. It was just like, yep, you guys as adults came up with this, and regardless of if it's good or not, we're gonna roll with it. Like it was just wild how little thought and feedback went into that part of it. And Jeff, we started the TriDot podcast, and we've started the RunDot podcast largely because we looked across the podcasting landscape. When I was listening to the triathlon podcast as a new triathlete, this show was telling me to do this, and this show was telling me to do that, and this show was saying, well, don't do this or that because this is what an athlete should do to have success. And I was like, whoa, 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 like what is going on? And I got plugged in with TriDot. We had some conversations, and we launched some podcasts. So definitely excited to learn today. And I'm curious, Jeff, because you've seen this over the years as all these different groups, parties, coaches, training programs are kind of debating, oh, training should be this way, training should be that way, training should be like this. Like I think there's some instances where like healthy debate and disagreeing ideas can help an industry, but sometimes it can hurt an industry. What do you think is happening here in the endurance industry as all these different parties have different training philosophies, training ideas?
I think healthy debate is wonderful. I always want healthy debate. The problem here is there is no debate. It's not a debate at all because a healthy debate assumes that there's shared measurable truths and you're talking from the same starting point. So experts can disagree about interpretation or validation or different things, and that's wonderful and that's very productive. However, what we find here is a foundation. It's a foundation problem, and that's very different because you have different inputs, and the inputs are inconsistent. There's no standards. All the standards even are subjective on what your training zones are, how you quantify training stress, or do you even quantify training stress? A lot of people use recovery and your heart rate and activity metrics for stress, and it's not stress, and we'll get to that. But the outcomes are also unverifiable. So you train with one, philosophy. How do you know if that's the best one? What if you'd done it differently? Can you measure the delta between the effectiveness of 2 different approaches? No one's doing that. No one can do that. So there is no ground truth for a debate to even begin, healthy or not. So if you think of other programs and platforms have done the same thing as the coaches, and they've looked at inherited theory and then they automate it, or philosophy and then they automate it. And there's the subjectivity in that didn't disappear. It just gets baked into the technology. And that has real consequences for the athlete. So they're beginning with a base that is of inherited subjectivity, and it just trickles all the way down. So
and it has consequences for the athlete, and the athlete might not even know. You go do your event
correct.
And you do okay. I don't know. Could it have been better if I had done my training another way? You never know.
But a lot of times they'll get some improvement and they're happy with that. They're content. My training worked. Well, did it work, or was it a limiter? Could you have done so much better? And so the platform prescribing their workouts may just be automating it, and it is automating a version of training that's never been examined, never been proven, never been validated itself, other than, hey, you're doing consistent activity. That's going to lead to some improvement. But that just efficacy and that testing of what's actually true to be able to have the debate as a starting point is not even there.
But like, I think what I find interesting about RunDot, and I'm not a triathlete, so I'm not on TriDot, but being able to trust the process, right? Trust the app, and knowing there's a lot of different training platforms out there, but how can we trust this and know when we open up our app we're going to get the right training?
I think it's important. Some of it is to think about, what is your app what was it designed to do? Most other apps, they did start with what's easy to measure. They're not starting with what drives adaptation. So they're putting their training on top of a platform that was prescribed or designed for something else. So whatever their platform is, it's prescribing training on top of a layer of something else, and it's not their foundation. So think about maybe a navigation app if you're going somewhere, and that navigation app is guiding you somewhere, but it's only tracking your speed, and that's it. So you're seeing this dashboard, your speed, you're measuring your activity, but it's ignoring the terrain and the weather and the traffic and the construction and maybe whether you're heading in the right direction. So it's useful, it's created to be a dashboard of a speedometer or whatever, but it's not actually navigating you anywhere. So that's close to what most training apps are doing. It's giving you maybe even a direction. You don't know if it's the right direction, but it's checking your speed. Are you doing some activities? And so listeners, they have a workout this morning, and that's most likely the type of training that their system generated. It was something that was designed never even to ask, what is that workout actually going to do to their body? So neither activity metrics nor response metrics are training intelligence.
Yeah. So Jeff, those two terms, activity metrics and response metrics, what are those for listeners, right? Because those are things we see in our apps. They're not labeled as that in these different apps. So when you say that, like, just kind of define those two terms for us.
Yeah, so activity metrics, think of that as miles, minutes, steps, anything that's just an accumulation. So you're doing an activity, time, sessions, anything like that. They say nothing about the physiological cost of what that activity entailed. Response metrics are similar. So that's how your body reacted. So my heart rate climbed after the workout, during the workout the next morning, my resting heart rate was high, my HRB was low. Again, those say nothing about the cause. There's a correlation, but it's not the cause. So you can have two people, one person, runs, 10 miles in 80 minutes at an identical pace. Both these runners, one of them is endurance dominant, well recovered, cool morning. The other one is coming off a very stressful week. They're power dominant. They're running in great heat. So the metrics that you're seeing, the activities are identical and the responses look similar. However, the physiological stress that they went through is drastically different. So neither runner's platform sees that in the actual app because none of them are actually measuring the physiological cost of the activity, and neither one of the response metrics are actually identifying a cause because there's so many different causes. They're there. Think about waking up even the next morning after a workout and you see your heart rate is elevated, your HRV is low. Was that because your workout yesterday was hard? Was it because the workout from 3 days ago was really hard and you're not recovered from it? Is it because it was a hot day yesterday? Is it because your chronic training load, your last 6 weeks or so was heavy and you're carrying this high load to begin with? Or are you getting sick? Or were you dehydrated? Like there's so many different things that could be symptomatic of. So it's not a causal, it's a correlative, and you can't even isolate. There's so many different signals and things happening. You can't anchor those metrics to any one thing. So heart rate and HRV are shadows of what actually happened. They're not the actual thing itself. And they don't show you a consequence of why and what to do next. So if inputs are just shadows of what you're using for your training, heart rate, HRV, activity metrics, then if those are just shadows, then nothing downstream from that you're making decisions based on it can be accurate.
Yeah, I've been a long time Strava user, well before I was a TriDot user, and they do, to their credit, a great job of showing you nice shiny graphs before and after or after workouts. And I used to look, they had like one in particular, there was this really cool graph they have that is like your fitness rating. Here's how fit I am according to Strava. And I used to think it was so cool. It blew my mind. Like, oh my God, look at this thing climbing. I'm getting fitter. And it finally, this is even pre-TriDot. It finally dawned on me like, oh, my score goes up when I'm doing more, and my score goes down when I stop doing stuff. Like that's all it is an activity metric. Is the term you're using here. But and Jeff, this might be like a slight aside and changing topics a little bit, but I'm like this close to killing my Strava account.
Oh,
and It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with that. One, it's because in the TriDot app now, in the RunDot app, we now have added some social features, right?
It's
And so
all
I now
about
have a
the
social profile
social,
there.
Andrew. Like, let's
And like
go.
and honestly, like Strava, like that's the only reason I've kept it is because I can fire it up and I can tell all my TriDot friends, hey, good job on your workout. Good job. Kudos, 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 kudos. And I can see what people are up to. Well, now I can see that in my TriDot app. And that's the only reason I was hanging on the Strava in the first place. So my profile is set up on the TriDot social app. I am Podcast Andrew. So go find me and follow me on TriDot. Interact with me, join the podcast group. But Jeff, we now have these social features. There are other apps in the fitness industry that have different social features, badges, engagement features of some sort. Where is the line between these being like helpful things in our fitness journey or just kind of like a distraction to have these in the app like whatsoever, if that makes sense?
I would say maybe it's not a line, but a priority and maybe a foundation. So engagement layers on top of training intelligence is wonderful. It's fun, it's engaging, all those things. That's great, and they make the platform, they make the training program stickier. You keep doing that's wonderful. But when engagement layers replace or are substituted for training intelligence, that's the problem. So there's a lot of social, like Strava and others, that they were designed to be that. The training is just the context of the social. So the training is not the point. You can't gamify your way to a marathon PB. You know, no badges, no all of that stuff is not going to lead you to a PB there. So when you're thinking about athletes that are training for a marathon, they're training for 18 weeks, 20 weeks, and their app is giving them kudos and leaderboards and all this stuff. But what matters most when you hit mile 22 is whether that training was actually preparing you the best possible way so that your body can do what it needs to do to get to the finish line and reach your potential. So the engagement was the draw in those situations, but the training was not the point. Whereas we've taken a different approach with TriDot and RunDot. We have community features because people want them, athletes want them for sure, but we were built first and built on top of FitLogic, which is our intelligence engine, and we're not built the other way around.
So, Jeff, did you just
and I can tell you, Jeff,
my social is everything? Did you just debunk that?
I don't know.
Well, and I can tell you guys, like, something I found in getting neck deep in the TriDot ecosystem, right, is like actually, and we joke about it on the podcast sometimes, like having your Strava account there in the back of your head during your workout, like sometimes has a negative effect because it's, if I go too easy today, people are going to see my average pace for my workout today is going to look slow. Well, it should be. It's an easy run. Let it be slow. But if you're thinking about your Strava followers seeing your work, or, heaven forbid, your Strava followers see that you did a 3.97 mile run instead of a 4 mile run, like like knowing there's people looking at it and thinking of the social before the training effect, I think leads a lot of people to train too hard, too fast, too often, too much, as opposed to the way you're pitching, Jeff, that we do here.
Well, there's a saying that you get more of what you measure. So if that's what you're measuring, you're going to get more of it. You will. And that's what gets celebrated. And so that's what gets chased. If that's what gets you recognition, celebration, kudos, and all those dopamine hits and praise from others, then that's what you chase. And so we try to flip that. Our gamification and those things are different. We have a TrainX score, which rewards your training execution. How well did you do what was prescribed for you? That's it. If it's 3 hours a week or 10 hours a week, whatever it is, do that well, and you're going to max your points. So it's rewarding for people for doing the right training, not just more or not just faster every time.
Okay, you ready to get techie?
Okay.
So
always
all
ready.
right. So you've categorized the training platform landscape into 5 groups. Walk us through the 4 that are not training intelligence, even though it may seem like they are on the surface. So let's dig into it a little bit.
Yeah. So I mentioned a couple of them before, kind of activity trackers. So they're just measuring activities. So they're built to observe and report. So it's Garmin, Strava, Apple Watch, Training Mode, Coros. There's no prescription in these. It just the athlete brings the thinking, and they just bring, here's what you did. And it's a measurement tool. It's like a dashboard. So the platform holds the data, puts it all in one place, and shows you what you did in the past. But what you do in the future, it's up to you. That's category 1. Category 2 is a lot of template platforms. So it's a platform It may be automated, maybe not, but it's basically built to automate a training philosophy. It's someone's methodology applied to everybody. And the anchor phrase here, if you think about automation is not intelligence. So even if the AI is AI automated, it's still not intelligence because it wasn't built to do that. It's built to just apply a philosophy, a methodology, or what someone believed. And so that's category 2, just the template platforms. Reactive platforms are the next. They're actually, making decisions in there, but they're reacting. So it's built basically to prescribe activity based on the activity and the response metrics. And we talked about those a second ago. It's, the actual activity, not this training stress, not what it does to your body. And then your response, how your body reacted, but it doesn't show the cause of the response. So there's so many things going on it can't identify, but it's just reacting to signals without the ability to diagnose the cause of the signal.
I think diagnose.
So those are built to adapt.
Diagnose is the big word there.
Yeah, they can't diagnose. They weren't built to diagnose. They were just built to adapt. Okay. They were not built to understand, but just to adapt. So it's these predetermined things that when this happens, then do this. But it's not knowing why. The next category is more of a recent category, last several years. It's the general purpose AI, the LLMs, the ChatGPT, and all the others. Those are built to recognize patterns in language, not physiology. So they're trained on words, not workouts. So you can even give it your workout, your data, and it's looking for patterns in there so it can read your training log, but it can't understand what it did to you. It can't understand the physiology, has no framework. It's applying theory broadly and giving you something that looks like a plausible plan. Like you can't look at it and say, this is wrong or that's wrong. So it looks logical, but it's missing the mark. That's not what it was designed to do, is train on language, patterns in language. The last category is the training intelligence. And so that's us. So that's built from the ground up to understand what training actually does to a specific athlete. FitLogic is the intelligence engine. It's the only platform in this category in the world. It's the only one built from first principles, from the ground up to do this. So none of the apps I mentioned in the first 4 categories were designed to understand you or your training.
But I want to go back because I still need to learn a little bit about ChatGPT, AI, all that stuff, and the difference between training intelligence. So let's go back to general purpose AI, category 4. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So it's an astonishing tool, ChatGPT. I don't use ChatGPT. I use Claude and other things for other things.
See, and this, everyone, we need to learn this from Jeff Booher too, because he studies all of this. So we don't want to use ChatGPT. We want to use Claude.
Claude Code, there's all kinds of stuff. There's reasons why I do that, but they're different based on what you use them for. Okay. But they're all amazing. Mm-hmm. They're all incredible, and they're great at what they do. They were trained on words about training, not training itself. When applied to a training plan, they're applying theory, and not the actual understanding of the physiological impact. There's no framework for understanding how you apply that to men, women, old people, high performance, low performance. So it can read your training log and it can generate a plausible sounding plan. So you look at it and you can't look at it and say, oh, this is wrong. I mentioned that a second ago. It looks right. But I've gone in there just jokingly, and said, hey, give me a plan for X, Y, Z, and it gives you a plan. I said, well, what about this? And it'll adjust it some way. And I said, oh, I really meant that, and it'll adjust it the other way. And it's just making up stuff. And the details matter. The little things matter. If you're have interval workouts and it's just 15 seconds off per 400 or something like that, that's huge differences. And the amount of training stress, it's not even managing the training stress. That's getting into some of the first principles, but it has no way to measure training stress. That input's not even coming into it. So, so what is that? The workout imposes the training stress, and there's no ways to individualize the physiology either. So there's no input from that talking about how does a man or a woman or an older person or a high performing person or younger tolerate stress differently. How does that residual training stress dissipate? There's all these things that it has no visibility to whatsoever, much less an understanding of it. So there's no way for it to even validate its own prescriptions. And there's no way for it to learn from the outcomes. If you gave it a problem, oftentimes you do this, working with it on many different problems. You give it some problems, it'll come back with different responses, different solutions every time you use it. So there's not even that consistency among the same exact prompts. It's giving you different things different times. And that's just amplified over time with training data that it doesn't understand.
Well, and that's what
So,
I think is so cool about TriDot and RunDot is yes, we have live coaches that can go along with the app, but the app, as you said, can read what's going on with us just by sleeping at night or by watching our everyday activities. And, with the Google, when you go and Google a couch to 5K, yeah, it probably gives you some good guidance as to how to do that. But
it's going to get you
gonna get
there.
you
It's
there,
going to get
yeah,
you
but
there.
it's not the same. So is AI. AI is just taking Google basically, right, and grabbing some of these couch to 5K plans. So I do love that your platform, Jeff, really looks at the athlete inside and out, even without a coach. But then when we also use our coaches, we have an extra tool on our tool belt,
absolutely. Yeah, and it's our app. So it's not just my app. A
Yes.
lot of brilliant people, including you
Well.
guys. But you think it can't understand. So it can read our training data,
Mm-hmm.
but it can't understand
Yep.
it. And it's a sophisticated autocomplete. Is not a substitute for training intelligence. So the real risk though for athletes, and you're talking about it'll get you there, but at what cost?
Exactly.
So we talk about better results and less time with fewer injuries.
Mm.
So is the cost the injuries? Is the cost that you just trained, an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours more per week for the last 6 months than you had to? Or is it this is your bucket list marathon or Ironman
Right.
or whatever, and you went an hour and a half to 2 hours slower than you could have? So for the rest of your life, your bucket list time, you always have this regret or doubt or wonder, like, could I have broken 12 hours, or
Yeah.
whatever your goal was.
And
So that's the real risk.
And I just have to say, I got
You
to
know,
interrupt you one more time because
yeah,
I watch you
always.
speak about this, and we do know that you are very much into the technical side of things, but you come from the athlete background, you come from the coach background, you've studied the body, like you know all the physiological things that are happening with the body before you even decided to have an app like RunDot or TriDot. Like that, I think is what's so cool, Jeff. And I don't know if everyone really understands that you can do all the old school ways of coaching because you know what's going on, but you've implemented now the technology to go behind it. So bravo. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. So,
I don't know, Jeff, if you've heard this story, and not that we need to talk about ChatGPT for too long, but like you and I have both been at conferences and we've been at events where like ChatGPT comes up as like this gotcha in AI, where like like a coach who's not with us will get on stage and kind of like, oh, I asked ChatGPT to design me a training plan and it was horrible, and like everybody kind of laughs at it, like, oh, of course it is, and it's like, okay, so first of all, is that technically AI? Yes. Is it like when we talk about what we do as AI, is it in the same category? Absolutely not. And that's what you're talking about. And Jeff, I always heard that example kind of get thrown around and scoffed at. And in my head, I was always like, well, okay, I get they're joking about this, but who would actually do that?
yeah.
Fast
No,
forward to the other day. Have you heard Corey's story? So one of our software developers, Corey, has a guy that lives in his neighborhood. So this is somebody who works on our team, has a buddy who has used TriDot in the past for a couple Ironman events and got it in his head, hey, I've been using ChatGPT for other things. I'm driving with it. Let me see if I can use this for my next event. Drops off of TriDot, fires up ChatGPT training for his next event, and has a bad experience. Womp, womp, womp. And is now back on TriDot. And Corey was telling me the story, and I was like, oh my gosh, it actually happened. Somebody actually tried it. I didn't know people were actually trying that. I just thought it was like a joke.
I think it's happening a lot more than we think. And because people use the word AI like they use the word vehicle.
Yeah.
Like if you say,
Wow.
I'm going to use a vehicle, I'm going to use a vehicle to get here across the state to this other city, and you're going crazy, and you're thinking vehicle, my scooter or my, a skateboard. That's a vehicle. Or, a vehicle can mean a whole lot of different things. And there's orders of magnitude difference between them. So AI in the sense of a chat GPT or anything like that is not what our AI is. They're completely different purposes built. They're architected differently, completely differently. So, the real risk to the athlete is just like Corey's friend or neighbor. I'm assuming they're friends. But the real risk is, Chat GPT can sound confident and you look at it and you don't have a way to discern that, but it has no way to verify itself. And so an athlete trusting that is trusting something that was built to recognize patterns of languages or language patterns rather than health and performance.
Yeah. Jeff, I want to ask a question about reactive platforms. Carrie was just kind of poking at ChatGPT is a general purpose AI category 4 on our list today. But you talked a little bit about reactive programs that see what your workout is and then immediately react to how this workout today went for you. Because TriDot and RunDot training is adaptive. It does see what you're doing and update what it's prescribing for you. And I've seen some athletes, Jeff, that they hear that and they know that, and I think they're expecting, oh, okay, I just did this workout today. Here's how it went. I'm expecting to see tomorrow and the next day and the next day update immediately. And it doesn't. They don't see like major updates. They don't see major changes, and they think, oh, it's not reacting on my behalf like other apps do. So we're not a reactive AI app. Are those apps overreacting and we are reacting, but properly and in a measured way? What would you say to athletes that see, try out, run out, and think that way?
A wonderful question. So ours is adaptive and reactive. It does those things also, but that's not what it relies on only. So you're looking at those reactive apps that are looking at those HRV and their predetermined decision points. So there's two things. What we're not only looking at that, we're looking at so many other things. So let me back up before I continue that answer. We're prescribing it to what it should be to begin with. So if you're seeing a program and you're having these drastic changes between I did the workout today and then what's prescribed the next day and the next day, they're not prescribing the thing correctly. They're kind of going blind and waiting on the thing to happen, and then they react to it. We're prescriptively saying, here's how much training stress that we want to induce tomorrow. Here's the residual training stress that's going to happen from that because of your age and your gender and the temperature you did it and the time of day and the hilly of the course. So on Friday, you're going to be ready to do this workout. We know if you do this workout right, you're going to be ready, and we're not going to have to change Friday's workout. Only if you deviate from that, not super substantially, but quite a bit, do things need to be changed. Your intensity, the distribution, your volume for the week, your long sessions, all of that can be changed. However, if you went in there and just like take a workout that you're going to work in the morning, if you want to see reactive, proactively reactive, and you're going to do that workout and it's 55 degrees and it's 6 o'clock in the morning, you say, I want to do this in the afternoon in 85-degree heat, you'll see the program change dramatically. You're going to see your intensities change by 20 seconds per mile or however many watts on the bike, depending on where you're at. So that's a proactive. We know your environment changes, and so we're going to change the intensity because we know that's a different level of effort in a different environment. None of those other apps do that. To do it only after the fact and surprise, and then it's this predetermined reaction that they say if your heart rate is this or moves by more than that, then they just have this predetermined, here's what is going to change. But they don't know why it changed. They just know it changed. Again, kind of back to the example I did earlier. Was it because that workout was hard or you didn't recover from the one 3 days ago and you put another workout on top of that, or your chronic training load or your lack of sleep, or all of these different things? Or was it the hard workout that you did in the afternoon and it was hot? That's why you're elevated, because you kept doing the same pace that you're supposed to do at 55 degrees, but you did it in 85 degrees. That's what it was. The workout wasn't too hard. The environment changed and you didn't change your plan. And so there's so much about it. One is it's predictive and prescriptive ahead of time. So we're not getting shocked. Well, let's see what happens. The trial and error. Oh, wow, that wasn't so great. And then the responses are not arbitrary or predetermined. We're actually separating the signal from the noise, so we know what happened and what needs to change for the next workout. It's not just an automated template.
Do you ever find athletes get pissed at the app? Like, I used to get really mad at my heart rate monitor. This was years and years ago. I'd be like, I know I can go harder. And then it'd be like 2 days later, I was throwing up because I had the flu coming on or something, like sometimes you get a little tick because the technology doesn't lie, it tells you.
Stop being so honest with me, heart rate monitor.
Like, I'm fine. I can push through this workout. Well, maybe not.
Yep. Yeah, but when you're able to track, so you can get that needs to be complemented though.
Yeah.
So even back to your training stress, if you're quantifying the training stress, is that, just a moderate load of aerobic stress that you're going to be recovered from in 2 days, or is it neural stress or muscular stress that's going to take much longer? And if you know that ahead of time, do we need to adapt it or not? Or are you going to be fine or no? Versus having, with your Garmin, there's all kinds of different devices. You do a hard workout, you need to recover for 3 days. Well, how do you know that?
Right.
It depends on the type, because it's using these arbitrary rule, one size fits all, algorithms.
So Jeff, here's an interesting one. You just mentioned Garmin, and before I started training with TriDot as an athlete personally, I was just going on vibes for my swim. I was going to the pool and doing what I felt like doing. I was going on vibes for my running. I was going out the door and running how I felt like running. The only type of quote unquote training plan I was trying, I was using Zwift for my indoor cycling, and Zwift has a library of workouts, and I would choose a workout and I would do it. And again, vibes, choosing what workout sounded interesting for
Which
today.
had
but
the best playlist.
That was my first taste,
or whatever.
Yeah,
Of course.
yeah. And so I'm wondering, Jeff, for athletes that are using some sort of library or are using some sort of training plan, and maybe they're using Garmin workouts, right? These days, your Garmin watch will tell you, hey, here's a workout you want to do today. You want to try it? There are athletes that are seeing improvement, having a good experience. They're getting faster. They might be PRing their races, and they are doing that kind of training, just going off of Garmin or doing what Strava tells them might be a good workout for the day. So they're doing some sort of training that's prescribed for them by something that sounds intelligent, and they're having a good result. What would you say to them? Is there anything wrong with that?
Well, it depends on how you define wrong. I think increasing my injury risk unnecessarily is wrong. I think not realizing my potential is wrong. I think spending time away from my career, my family, my wife, and not getting the results I could is wrong. I think those are wrong. If you're out there just to spend your time and to have activity and some results and you don't care, then maybe not. And I'm not being flippant here. There is real results that those athletes are seeing. If they're improving, from effort, consistency, their genetics, they're recovering well, they're eating good. Those are great. And those are real results. So the question is not, are they running well because of the training, because of the app, because of the workout library? Or the question is, are they running well despite that? That could be a limiter, and they could be running much better. And there's also not an acute consequence for doing those things. You can run for a while and you get injured in a year and a half. And it's this cumulative overtraining over time. And the other aspect is you don't know what your potential was. A lot of them say, I did well. Well, compared to what? What's your reference point? So if they never even had an idea that they could have done so much more better result, or they didn't realize I could have trained an hour and a half, 2 hours less per week with my family or whatever that is. That's a lot accumulated over time. And so if they don't have that reference point, it's their judgment, I guess, just needs an anchor point. And that's what the first principles does. It creates that reference point and that anchor point. So the ceiling for someone's athletic performance may not be their potential at all. It's their platform. They never even get visibility to it. They don't know what's possible. So I know that Andrew Hall is just a classic example, and he's kind of a high-end athlete. He's
the
amateur.
Faster Andrew. The faster than me,
Andrew Hall.
Yeah.
Andrew
I wish
Hall.
I was as fast as Andrew Hall.
You just came from Boston. That's how you say Holly. Andrew Hawley.
So just Andrew Hall. So he raced Ironman Texas. I've seen him race several times in person. He's a great athlete. He finished Ironman Texas, ran about 8:30, which is an incredible time. Amateur. So he's an amateur champion 2 years in a row. Won it, and he went 8:30. He beat 40% of the pros as an amateur, 40 years old. Okay. So he's not a young pup. So a lot of the pros are much younger than him. So he's 40 years old. And I've told the story before. Oh, he ran in college. I said, no, he didn't start running until he was 33 years old and got into triathlon. So he was late coming, had no run background, beating 40% of the pros, whipping everyone else in his age group, all the other amateurs. And the elites at that level are generally training 25 to 30 hours a week. So here's the kicker. He was training an average of 15 hours a week. So when you look at the cost and doing well, there's other athletes that performed great, but the amount of time less that he trained that other athletes at that same level did, he's trained enough time to have 8-hour days for 3 months. 3 months of 8-hour work days is how much he didn't train that they did train. Think about that when you quantify that's time away from work or your job or your family or wear and tear. All of that time is wear and tear on your body. So you want to keep doing the sport. Maybe the cost to you is not performance. It is time saving, but I just want to keep doing it until I'm as old as I can. And I don't want to have to get out. So think of all that much less wear and tear on your engine. So the platform, when the athlete is doing the thinking, working with a tracker app or any of these other things, the platform can become the ceiling. And the athlete has no even idea of what their potential could be, They have no idea of the risk that they're incurring, and they have no idea that they could be achieving better results. And it's very counterintuitive that they could achieve better results for training less. So in that situation of, athletes doing better and getting great results, the kudos to them, but that's because of their consistency, their hard work, their ethic, some of that, they're going to get some of those benefits from training, but they've been supplying all that. It's not their platform. It's coming from their training, their consistency, their behavior, to the extent that they do get results from those platforms.
Yeah, and we need to have the faster Andrew Hall, and his coach Matt Bach on the show sometime, and just hear about his experience. Because he didn't start off training with TriDot. He adopted it a few years ago and just saw his results skyrocket. So Jeff, getting back to the topic, you've said very plainly, TriDot, RunDot, at their core, at their foundation, they are built up upon training intelligence. And, we've added a shiny app onto that. We've bolted social features, engagement features onto that. A lot of these other platforms, start with those kinds of things. Could they then bolt training intelligence onto their app and make it better than it currently is? Why or why not? What would it actually take for someone else to attempt what we're doing through what they're doing?
I would have to equate that. So you're looking at a platform, the way the software is architected, what it's designed to do. I think an easy to understand analogy is, could you take a warehouse, like a physical warehouse, and upgrade that, retrofit it into a hospital? And obviously, no. The warehouse is not defective. It just was not designed to be a hospital. The warehouse is serving the function, whether it's gamification or tracking or any of those different things. It was never built with what a hospital requires in mind, with the structural, the electrical, the whatever, how they clear out the air to make it sanitary. I mean, there's so many different things that a hospital requires from day one. You can't just retrofit that into a warehouse. You cannot renovate. You have to scrap and start over, scrape it and start again. And so that's what other training platforms that were not designed to training intelligence, they can't do all of the things that need to be done. It's not a bolt-on. It's not possible. It's not training intelligence. You can't just add features. If other platforms had every feature that we list features-wise, that's not training intelligence. The training intelligence comes from the foundation, the engine that it takes to produce it. So that gap is not features. It's the actual foundation of what we were built upon and what we've been doing for the last 20, 25 years. So you can't bolt on training intelligence onto a foundation that it was not built for. So training.
Jeff, have you ever seen like a gas station that's a gas station for a long time and goes out of business, and then it becomes like a Waffle House?
Yeah.
And it's like the most goofy looking Waffle House like ever.
And you can't get over that there were
so that's structural things.
Gas and things outside of it. What are those called?
But think about it the other way. Think about it the other way. If you had a Waffle House and then you want to turn it into a gas station, well, there's pumps that need to be underground, and there's tanks, and there's all of this stuff. You got to start over. You can't just insert that plumbing and the hardware and all the things for environmental controls that need to be done. So the only pathway for any of those circumstances, whether it's a Waffle House and a gas station, a warehouse, a hospital, or a training app that was not designed for training intelligence, the only way is to start over. You have to measure differently, think differently, architect differently.
Well, you mentioned 20 years, and that made me think of FitLogic, because you guys have been around for a long time. And I am newer to this group, to this trio here. Andrew has talked about being the podcast host for a few years at TriDot, and I just started at RunDot, so I'm learning all the time. So let's kind of rewind and talk about FitLogic a little bit.
So kind of every other app, I'd say they didn't really take a shortcut. It's not the best way, but they just were not intending to do training intelligence. They did other things, and they're trying to bolt on or add or give something that's plausible for a training program, based on what's the easy to measure metrics, activity metrics, response metrics. But we went the other way, and before a single workout was prescribed, there had to be a way to accurately quantify training stress that was imposed on your body by separating it from type in the environment. And before you could individualize a plan, you had to have a framework built around age and biology and genetics and training history. It's not just your preferences, but it's like, how does that actually affect people on those multiple degrees of freedom and spectrums? And then before that the system had to actually learn, and it had to be able to validate have a closed loop validation to where we could validate what's being prescribed, so that then we could learn from it and improve. at the physiological level to see what the actual training result was. And you mentioned earlier that, I started with actually a problem to understand all this. We didn't come at this like from day one. For me, I didn't say, okay, how can I go about designing training intelligence? It started with me and a problem. I was an athlete with young kids and a wife and a family and a career and all this stuff. And I didn't want to train as much as everyone else was saying, 25 hours a week. So I started like, well, everyone's saying all these different things. I saw the same thing that Andrew mentioned. They're saying this, someone else saying that. They can't all be true. And so just trying to research and find out what is true, and gradually, incrementally over time, building and discovering the algorithms and how do you quantify training stress, and what is a scale? What should this framework be? And what for that framework be? And building it incrementally. I researched for 7 years from 2003 to 2010 before we launched TriDot. So there's 7 years of data on hundreds of people throughout that time, and before we launched it and we continuously improve after that, learning more.
And Jeff, for people to know, you're not just like a salesman, insurance guy. Like your background is in data analytics to begin with, and so you're not just like a dad trying his hand at developing this. Like there was there was a fit there, right?
Yeah. So that's my degrees in management information systems. So I was building neural networks and doing AI stuff. Simplistic at that time, but 35 years ago.
Don't age yourself, Jeff. Don't age yourself.
25 years ago.
Mm-hmm. You were 10.
So, I've had the athletic background. I always love athletics. I always love data and technology. And what I love most of all is solving problems that are real problems for me. And then if I learn it from me, like I want to share it with people. I want to bring that to others. So that's what I started seeing other people experiencing the same thing and really responding to, hey, this is really cool. Y'all are on the podium and you're present with your family and and so that's a rewarding part for me. And so I guess it's the patience born out of kind of necessity, just my station in life at the time and working career. I was working on growing another company, doing the research. So I had that patience and the conviction that I wanted to do it right, but it started with doing it right for me, for my family, so that I could fit my competitive goals and striving to reach different goals and my potential, but in a way that respects my family and the other priorities in my life as well. So TriDot and RunDot came out of that. So they're a direct athlete application, but they're built on the FitLogic engine that I've been building for more than 25 years. So it's not just a feature advantage over other apps. It's we have a 20-year head start on the only foundation built for this that actually works and understands training.
Yeah, I think I would like to dig into that just a little bit, just to humanize this a little bit more. And you've already alluded to it, but there are so many people that have given up going to kids' soccer games in the morning on Saturdays to get their long runs or their long rides or long swims in. They've skipped date nights. I am one of them. I'm like, Charlie, I got to get up at 5 a.m. I'm sorry. I'm going to bed early. There's part of us that I think feels bad maybe about what we've done in the past now that there's these new ways to train. So do you think that it's actually cost us time in our lives by training the other way?
I absolutely think so. I think you can't go back in time with information that you have now that you didn't have then.
Yeah.
So you only have as much, I guess, regret as you had information to make a different decision. So I think all of those things are not the athlete's fault. They did what they could. They optimized their schedule, their sleep, their nutrition. You did all the things that you knew to do and you were aware to do. But the one thing they didn't, and I don't think they had a chance really, is to audit the foundation of what is my training actually designed to do. Where did this actually come from? You didn't have this list of choices and say, I'm going to pick the ineffective one or the one that didn't have they didn't know. So you went among the options that were available to you, but the consequences of that are no less real. And I think there's really three. The first one is the limited performance, that your progress is going to stall out well below your potential. When you do that, you're wasting training time. So you're putting in hours that you don't have to, that are unnecessary, that could lead to more injury, but they're not as efficient. Like you wouldn't invest in stuff if you didn't get the same kind of return. You wouldn't keep making the same decision. Make investments and you have interest rates, and so hey, here's how much I'm going to make back. If you have that with a training program, here's how much I'm going to make back with this option. Here's how much I'm going to make. You determine how much you're going to invest. And so as you invest your time in that, you're making wise decisions. But when you don't have the opportunity to choose that or an alternative that's even measuring or giving you that quantifiable number or can track it itself, then that's a real cost. And I think a big one is the injury risk. That overtraining, you, most of the time you don't see it coming. It's a gradual thing. It's not the high intensity stuff that leads to injury. It's the chronic, the lower intensity that leads to injury. And Andrew had a great experience of his dad training and kind of his own two work and coming to the platform and having some aha moments like, wow, I'm not getting injured anymore. This is incredible. And to be able to have a platform that's actually having you do the right amount of intensity and the right kind of intensity and the right quantities to make sure that you can recover from it. And it's not just using heart rate or HRV. This is measuring a shadow of a bunch of stuff that happened, but we're isolating what actually happened. So your performance is limited, your training time is wasted, and your recovery risk does go up.
No brainer.
So those things are factual. Yeah. So you have an athlete that's training for their first marathon. You know, they're running, they're dedicated, they're saying, hey, I'm going to commit my time to this. Even I'm going to spend some time away from my kids, but I'm going to inspire them too. You can go after hard things, do challenging things. So there's a good piece of that that's good. And it's not like these athletic endeavors come without sacrifice. They always do, but it's the unnecessary sacrifice that's the part that you don't want. There is a necessary part of that. You do have to put in the work, and you do have to, give up some things. They give up their Saturday mornings for their long runs. They give up some sleep. They have to go to bed early so they don't go on a date night. They do all of these different things. And maybe they do finish the race, but maybe they get hurt. Maybe they don't have perform their potential. Maybe, all these other things. Those Saturday mornings given up, those date nights, they don't come back. They're gone.
I know.
And your kids don't get any younger, like opportunities. So our time is the most valuable thing. So you want to go through and have a great experience, achieve your best, your potential, but you want to enjoy that experience, but you don't want to sacrifice things that you just don't have to sacrifice when you can actually perform better doing it a different way. So whether that's running a marathon or training for your first Ironman, there's a joke out there that I've heard forever. They don't let you finish and your family be there at the finish line anymore. But it used to be your family would be at the finish line. And I used to joke and say, you know why they do that? You know why their family's at the finish line? Because they haven't seen them in 6 months.
True. Yeah.
So it's it's that you've the sacrifice, but it doesn't have to be that way. And that's started with my desire. Like I said, it's not going to be this way. So I drew a line in the sand and I said I need to solve for how I can train more efficiently so that that's not me. And so those are not outcomes. The getting injured, the lack of potential, the spending too much time. It's not just bad luck. Those are outcomes because of training built on assumptions that no one ever questioned, and people don't see the alternatives.
And how I think of efficiency also brings longevity. Like people will ask me all the time, "Oh, you don't train very much anymore." I train, and I get in, 25 to 35 miles a week. It's not 100 like I used to train when I was a paid professional, but I still train pretty hard. But I want to be able to do this till I'm 85. Like a woman just ran the 85-year-old 10K record here in Minnesota, and that's what I want to do. So I think with that efficiency comes longevity. So I think that's a big thing too.
As we wrap up today's main set, with everything we've learned today, everything we've talked about, what is the one takeaway you want people to have in their heads as we call it a day and move into the cool down?
So I think that athletes should ask themselves, was my training platform even designed to understand me or training? I think most people training have never asked that question. They just assume that if something has training on it, their app, their device, whatever, that's what it was designed for. But as we talked about before, the answer is no. They're designed to track, to gamify, to make you consistent, whatever, have fun, kudos, to accumulate metrics. But the answer is no, they don't understand you or your training. So everything downstream from that is only a shadow of what training intelligence actually looks like. And so the four principles of training intelligence themselves, they make a closed loop system that makes it possible for you to understand what training actually does. What does it actually mean for an athlete's training when you have that kind of a platform? So the first principles are not options. They're the inviolable laws that determine whether the training actually works.
Ooh, I like that. That last sentence was powerful. And we get to hear more from you, Jeff. So I can't wait for this series to start, Andrew. This is going to be fun. We are getting ready for the cool down. This is the last and final question of this pod today. So, and I'm kind of excited about this one. If you can believe it.
I picked a good question.
Andrew picked a very good question. And it's from Coach Matt Summer, who I guess just ran the Boston Marathon.
Sure did.
Awesome.
Shout out to Matt.
Yay. Okay. Jeff won.
He did great. He's like 306, something like that.
Did you get to see him out there or no?
Yeah, low threes.
Did you get to see him?
Oh, I did. Yeah, a couple times. Did that shakeout run, 5K. I didn't do it. He did it. I talked to him afterwards with Brady and a couple other folks. RunDot tried out.
Yeah, I got to see Brady. Obviously, we saw Meb and Howie. And Andrew, I got to see Jeff. Sorry, you got to come to Boston. Anyway, okay, back to the cool down.
I lived it on the socials. I lived it through social media. I was basically there.
Right. Well, Matt Summer wants to know, when is Jeff going to do his next Ironman?
Oh, got him.
Oh, man. So I've been not racing for quite a while. So I'm not sure. It's been a while. It's been more than a decade, almost 15 years.
Wow.
In 2010, I started a junior team, and I did my last Ironman a little bit before that. And I spent 15 to 20 hours a week doing high performance draft legal racing with the kids and coaching them 15, 20 hours a week all over the country. Andrew knows this very well. We spent a lot of time on pool deck together with our kids and training. And I just kind of put my training on the back burner for a long time and working, growing the company, building the technology, building the team. So now my sons are, they're on the team. They're out there in college. They're beyond college and kind of, and so they're starting to race. They've done a couple 70.3s. And so now they're, come on, Dad, you can come back and race. And I want to race. And so I'm thinking about it. I think they're trying to recruit me because they think if we all do it together, then it's a family thing and I'm going to pay and we're all going to go together. So I think there's a kind of an ulterior motive there, but I'm excited too. I am starting to train a little bit more now, more consistently. And so I look forward to maybe a 70.3 next year in 27. And then we'll see where we go from there.
I like that. 70.3, I don't know why, but 2027, it feels kind of like the numbers sort of jive.
Yeah, maybe. But see, I also think about a T100. So I was just in Singapore on the Gold Coast, watch a couple of those races. Those are super exciting. It's a little bit more attainable distance. Yeah. Very fun. And so like that's kind of there too. So looking at the destination races, maybe Alcatraz could be a great one. So there's a bunch, but I mean, I'm thinking even this year, I considered doing a super try, in Austin or Chicago. So that's fairly close to us. And I was thinking about that. So I'm probably going to kind of ramp it up and do one of each. And so I kind of make it.
I can't wait.
Well, now that your social media is kind of blowing up and it's getting going, now you
go follow Jeff Booher on social media.
And now you can
he's posting. Jeff Booher. Yeah.
He's posting.
And then you can post your training.
So it's very uncomfortable for me. It's very uncomfortable. Too. So please follow me. I need a couple more people. I'll get over that dozen mark somewhere now. Appreciate it.
Keep getting after it, Jeff Booher and Andrew Harley. I will too.
Do so. Thank you for the encouragement.
Thanks for listening to the RunDot podcast. Help us out by leaving a rating and review on your listening platform of choice. For more opportunities to learn from our coaches, check out our YouTube channel and follow RunDot Training on social. Ready to train with us? Head to RunDot.com and get started for free. Until next time, happy training.